This is She Creates Business, a podcast for wedding pros. Your host, Kinsey Roberts, interviews incredible women in the wedding industry who are making their mark and creating success on their terms. Join the conversation.
Well, hey there and happy Thursday. Welcome to episode 60 of She Creates Business, a podcast for wedding pros. This is your host, Kinsey Roberts. Thanks so much for being here today, guys. I'm really excited about today's interview with Autumn Witt Boyd, who is an attorney for creative entrepreneurs. We are chatting all about JV partnerships and having partners in your business. And I am really personally interested in this topic because, as you may or may not know, I have a business partner in the wedding venue that I own, Vista View Events, and that business partner is my sister-in-law, Katie. So always talking about partnerships and how to treat those and how to make them run better is fascinating to me because there is a lot that goes into having a partner. And running a business by yourself is one thing, but running it with another person who has their own ideas and their own, creative aspirations and things of that nature is a totally different beast. And in today's chat, we're not only talking about partners who you're going to have in your business for an extended period of time, but as I mentioned, also JV partners. So if you're going to, collaborate with people, do those joint ventures, Autumn goes into all of the details today about how you can really set those up so that they are beneficial for both parties and so that you're both protected as well. There's great tips in today's show. And a little bit about Autumn. She's a lawyer who works with entrepreneurs with big dreams. She helps her clients navigate growing their business from being a one-woman show selling products or services to bigger collaborations and deals. She loves helping creatives get started on the right foot, create airtight contracts, and understand their legal issues in plain English. I absolutely love that. Autumn also hosts the Legal Roadmap podcast, which teaches business owners how to protect their rights and stay out of legal hot water. Don't you love that? You are going to really enjoy these tips because I can't say enough how accurate that line is about understanding your legal issues in plain English. She is so practical and really boils it down to terms that we can understand. So without further ado, let's go to the show. Autumn, welcome to the show.
Hi, Kinsey. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you for coming on. It's my pleasure to have you here. As I was just telling listeners, I did your professional bio there at the top of the show, but I would absolutely love it if you would briefly, in your own words, tell us who you are and how you are currently serving the wedding industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a lawyer, which I'm sure you said. I work with a lot of event planners and wedding planners to help them put solid client contracts in place and then deal with any issues they may have with contractors who are difficult or clients who might be difficult. Any kind of questions that come up. I've helped some of them register trademarks for their brands and, expand, do partnerships and collaborations. So all kinds of the business legal things that event and wedding industry people need. Oh, also photographers. I forget you're not just with wedding planners. So yeah, I work with a lot of photographers as well.
Awesome. And you're totally right. We're definitely not just planners. I myself own a venue. And so I think we run the full gamut of the wedding industry on this show. Do you help, would you help like a venue owner or a florist as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I help kind of, I have a very, I feel like I have a narrow niche, but it's any kind of creative business owner. So if you fall in that bucket, I enjoy working with you.
Excellent. That's so good to know. Well, I'm sure there's a story here, and I'm excited to hear it. And I did hear a little bit of it because I listened to your interview. One of my favorite podcasts is Tara Gentile's podcast, Profit, Power, Pursuit. And I just listened to you the other day, which is a great interview, you guys. You need to go. I'll put it in the show notes. So I do know a little bit of your story, but I would love for you to tell my listeners the journey from, working in a traditional, quote, attorney job to now working with creative entrepreneurs and folks in the wedding industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been an attorney for 12 years. I've been on my own doing this kind of practice with creatives for about 2 years. I'll spare you all the many jobs that I've had over the years, but my last kind of bigger job before I went out on my own was working for a small boutique law firm, and we did just copyright infringement litigation. So what that means is we represented mostly photographers and stock photography agencies, and we went after people who were using their images without permission. So that was really fun. I got to travel all over the United States because all copyright law is all federal, so we could take on clients in all 50 states. And, I was in court, I was arguing, I was doing a lot of writing and research. It was really fun. But what I spent most of my time doing, honestly, was arguing with other attorneys, which when someone, when a kid tells you that they love to argue and so they want to go to law school, like as an adult, that now makes me cringe because those are the most obnoxious lawyers, the ones who really love to argue.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know, you learn about yourself as you grow up. I'm now in my mid-30s. I have found out that I'm a really practical and pragmatic person. And so spending my day arguing with someone who just really loves to argue and is just basically trying to drive up the bill and waste time and put up obstacles, that just drove me crazy.
I'm sure.
So I found myself just, in the last couple years that I worked at that firm, I was really overworked. I was working a lot of hours. I had young children at home. I was taking out my frustrations on my family, which they did not appreciate. And so I looked around a little bit towards the end of my time there and knew I wanted to do something different, but didn't really know what that was going to look like. So I even considered leaving law altogether.
Oh, wow.
But there are parts of law that I really enjoy. I love working with clients. I love solving problems. I love helping people. And so I decided that I could stay in the law, but it needed to look different. And so I have set up basically a virtual practice. I have some local clients here in Chattanooga, but most of my clients I never meet them face to face. And I thought I was going to do a lot of work for startups because of my background with copyright and trademark. And I thought that, managing their intellectual property needs was going to be, a great niche that I would fill. And then as I started trying to get those clients, I found out, A, they have no money, which is not great if you're trying to pay the mortgage as an attorney. And B, it wasn't a great personality fit with some of those kinds of clients. And so I floundered a little bit and tried to figure out who would be a good personality fit, and just by happenstance got a couple of kind of creative entrepreneurs referred to me and loved working with them and fell into some communities on Facebook and elsewhere where I just kept meeting more people and I would answer questions, and more of those kinds of referrals were coming to me, and I was connecting with people myself and, starting to make relationships. And so it was totally by accident, but I could not love it anymore. It's a great fit for my skill set, and I just have had a really fun time working with those kinds of clients. So that's now what I really focus on when I'm looking for new clients. That's what I tell people I love to do, so that I now get, those kinds of clients who come to me.
Oh, yes. That's I don't want to pass over that. I love that you are outspoken about the kind of clients that you love, because then it attracts your ideal client. I think that we can really learn a lot from that in the wedding industry.
Absolutely. I'll tell you something funny that I just started doing, Kinsey, that your listeners may be able to learn from. And another lawyer gave me this idea. I can't claim it, but I was chatting with him. He's another solo lawyer. And I had been getting a lot of bad referrals, and it wasn't that they were bad people or bad businesses, but they just weren't a great fit for the services that I offer. And so I was just talking with him about what I might do about that, or how I'm a helper. And so I always felt like I had to connect them then with the right attorney for them. And it would end up taking me time and, basically losing money on these referrals. And he told me that he had created like a one-page PDF of what his services that he offers. He specializes in employment. So, what kinds of services he offers and what kinds of clients are a great fit for him. And I thought that was absolutely genius. And he told me he hands it out to people, he emails it to people, and that he's handed it out to his referral sources, and now they send him great referrals. And I thought that was just genius. So I have done the same thing. And that is now part of my end of project. I send an end of the project email, and I always attach it to that and say, the biggest compliment you can pay me is to refer me to your friends or family if they would be a good fit. And here is how you know if they would be a good fit. And that's been super useful.
Wow, that is so simple and significant.
Yes.
That's a great
it costs
idea.
You no money.
Yes, you could whip that up in Canva.
Yes, exactly. I did it in Word. I mean, it's not fancy. It's literally bullet points.
That is so smart. And I love that. I'm writing that down. And that will be in the show notes, everyone. You don't need to take notes in case you don't remember. I'll put it in the show notes, because we could do that for our clients, after we have a wedding, after we host an event, after you do a portrait shoot. Such good advice. Okay, just wanted to make sure I wrote that down.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. Well, when I did the kind of bio and the episode introduction, I told everyone what we're talking about today, which is really all about joint ventures and partnerships. And I'm really personally looking forward into getting into this conversation because in my venue business, I am in a partnership, and it's very interesting. It's fun. Not all the time. It's not all like puppy unicorn rainbows, but it's very intriguing to be in a partnership. So Autumn, I'm so excited to get your take on this. And so I guess let's start with joint ventures. And if you would tell me, kind of as a lawyer, how do you define a joint venture for us creatives?
Right, absolutely. So I always give this disclaimer that I am an attorney licensed in Tennessee, but everything I'm talking about today is just information. I don't want anyone to rely on this as legal advice. If you have a specific question, make sure you connect with your own lawyer and make sure you check your local rules and laws. So joint venture may be what we call in the legal world a term of art, like a defined term in some states. I'm not going to use it as a defined like legal term. I just call joint ventures, any kind of collaboration where you're joining forces with someone else and combining resources and energy, and maybe you're splitting profits or splitting proceeds. So I'm just going to kind of use that word in a really general sense with you today. So that's how I define it.
Deal. Okay. And I think, what are some examples of collaborations that you've seen that would kind of fall under that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it can really run the gamut. It can be something like if you're doing a styled shoot and you have a photographer who's collaborating with maybe a dress store and a bakery and maybe a paper company, or, all those different pieces that might go into a styled shoot. That, even something as simple as that, could be considered a joint venture or a collaboration. Mm-hmm. A lot of times I'll see affiliate relationships or referral, more formalized referral relationships, where someone is sending business to another company and they're expecting to either get a percentage of that back or a referral fee. That could be considered a joint venture. It could be something where, if you're in the online business world, where you and another company collaborate on a course where you're creating something together that you're then going to sell, or another kind of digital product. So it can really span the gamut. Any time that you're working with another person to create something or produce something, it could be, like you said, starting a venue. When it gets to that point and it's a little more formal partnership, and you have co-ownership and maybe you're a separate corporate entity, those can be a little bit more complex, as I'm sure you've seen.
Yes, that's what we have. Yes. Okay, we'll get there. Yes. Okay, so let's take one example here. I think that a lot of our listeners have multifaceted businesses, so they don't just operate in their local area as a photographer, as a florist, or what have you. They probably have some sort of online aspect to their business. So let's talk about joint ventures in terms of like collaborating on a course. And so if we're going to do that, what are some things that we need to establish legally speaking?
Yeah, absolutely. So I always recommend that you have your agreement in writing. Mm-hmm. This is something you can totally do yourself if you're just starting out. And it can literally be on the back of a legal pad. I don't like people to use napkins because they can get messy, but it can be just you writing out some really basic terms of how you're going to work together, what each side is going to do. If money has to be invested in the project, who's going to invest what? If money is going to be earned from the project, who's going to earn what? If there are different percentages. And then how you can walk away. So if the partnership or I don't want to use partnership, but if the collaboration is not working out and one side wants to leave, how does that work? Does the other person have to buy them out, or can we just both walk away, take our toys and go home? And then the last thing I always like to think about is who owns any intellectual property that is created. So like with a course, if there's text or photos or videos, all that stuff has value. That's the value of the thing you created together. And under copyright law, the default rule is that you're co-owners. So you each own basically 50% of the thing, of the copyright. And you each have the permission to use it, whether the other person doesn't have to approve of it or not. Now, lots of people don't really like that rule. So you can change that rule, but you have to put it in writing. So those are all things to think about.
Okay, so yes, so if you want to, that makes sense, how you can walk away. I'm just making sure that I get this information. Again, guys, don't feel like you need to take notes if you're on the treadmill, if you're driving. I'm doing that for you. It's going to be in the show notes because this is, or, listen again, like I know I will. So what if we don't, and I'm sure this happens, what if we do not get our stuff in writing and we are in a collaboration that, not that it goes badly, but it is time to separate. It does feel a little awkward. What are our options? Or, do we have any rights?
Yeah. So at that point, even if you didn't put your agreement in writing at the front end, you can still do it at the end.
Okay.
And I would definitely recommend that. And again, it's something you can do between yourselves if you're still hopefully you're still on good terms and you're talking and you're not in a fight. But if you are on good terms, you can just put all of those things we just talked about in writing. If there is any money left in the bank account, let's say you did a PayPal for the course, if money is still sitting in PayPal, how are you going to split it up? Or does someone need to be reimbursed because they invested more than the other person? Just talk about all of those things. Who owns any rights? Is somebody going to take the course and keep doing it moving forward, or is it just going to die? All of those kind of things you can just talk about and put in a simple agreement and make sure both sides sign it and keep a copy. And then, my goal is always to avoid misunderstandings later. So just think about that and think about if you ever, God forbid, did have to have a disagreement and have to sue somebody over it. Could you take it to the judge and could the judge understand it? As someone who's not involved directly in your collaboration.
Absolutely. That is very easy to understand. Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder, you mentioned a little earlier that a joint venture could also be considered if you had affiliate relationships. And as we all know, many times when people are selling a course, they could have affiliates. And so could you kind of touch a little bit on what needs to be created? Is it also just kind of an agreement with affiliates? If you are going to have affiliates for your course, do you have to have an agreement in place with them that you both sign?
Yeah, same thing. It's not required. There's no law that says you have to have an agreement, but it's definitely best practice to have. And for an affiliate arrangement, it can be really simple. Just, who's going to do what? What do they have to do to get their affiliate percentage? Does somebody have to buy through their link, or do you give them a special code that people use? Just however you're going to track that people did actually come from them. And then if they're required to do any kind of social media posting, or, if you're requiring them to help publicize it, you would want to include that in there. And then how you're going to pay them. Is it going to be, a payout immediately as soon as a course is sold? Is it going to be at the end of the launch? Is it going to be quarterly? Just whatever terms you want to have, you want to definitely include it there. And again, same thing about termination. If it turns out they're really annoying and they have 1,000 questions and it turns out that they're more trouble than it's worth to be an affiliate, how can you terminate them? Or if they decide it's not a good fit for their business, how can they terminate their affiliate arrangement with you?
Okay, excellent. What do you think, excuse me. Now, I think that, is there anything else I missed on kind of joint ventures? I know that they're really popular. I mean, even just in style shoots, we're always collaborating. But is there anything I missed there that you think we should touch on?
Yeah, the one thing I was looking at, I made some notes before we got on, and the one thing I hadn't hit on yet was the idea of a non-competition agreement.
Oh, okay. Tell me more.
Yeah, so this is going to be something that some people may want and some people may think is not a great fit for their collaboration. So it's definitely case by case. But let's say you collaborated with someone and you're doing a course all about floral arranging, and the person who you're collaborating with owns a floral shop, and maybe they want to go create their own course about floral arranging. Well, if that course is going to compete with the course you've done together, that may not be an ideal situation for you as the collaborator. So you may want to include in your collaboration agreement something about how they can compete. And you can spell that out in a million different ways. Maybe they just can't do something that's exactly the same, but if it's something related, it's fine. You can kind of figure out what makes the most sense for you. I will caution, non-compete clauses are an area where every state's law is really different. So definitely research your state's laws or get in touch with a local lawyer, because some states uphold them more than others. So your mileage may vary with that, but it's just something to think about. And I have clients who are in really similar industries. For example, I've worked with Kathleen and Emily, who host the Being Boss podcast. Kathleen works for a branding agency. Emily in the past has done web design. So their businesses are really similar. And when we were working on their collaboration agreement, and I'm not talking out of school, they've talked about this publicly.
Yes, I've heard that.
Yeah. So we talked about a non-compete, and we just couldn't figure out a way to do it that made sense, because their businesses are so closely aligned. And so they wanted a term that just basically says, I'm going to paraphrase. I'm not sure if you're a clean podcast or not, but it's basically a don't be a jerk clause. Where, they're just going to agree that if somebody gets an incredible opportunity, they're going to talk about it and they're going to do what feels right and feels fair. So, you don't have to necessarily put it in a bunch of legalese. It can be as simple as something in there that just says, we're going to use our best efforts to, to share the wealth and not compete with each other.
That is so brilliant. And we have something similar. It's in our operating agreement for our LLC, for our venue. And it basically just says, because we decided not to bring on a third partner who just had a minor percentage so that we could have an uneven number of voters, basically. So we kind of have the same clause that just says, we are 50% owners and we need to agree. And if we can't, we have to go to this neutral third party who were bound by that decision. And we picked someone who we both very, we highly admire and respect, and we don't want to go to him.
Oh, that's a great idea. You have a tiebreaker.
Yeah. We don't want to have to go to him with silly things. So we put that so we'll basically agree to not be a jerk.
Yeah. I think there are lots of creative ways you can tackle it. So, but it's definitely something to think about if you are in related industries, or if you're worried about one person, doing something that could maybe hurt the collaboration.
Okay, so that's smart. Non-competition agreement. Well, we've touched on it a little bit, especially with the Being Boss gals, who are awesome. If you're not listening to Being Boss, you should be. That's a great, great podcast. Emily and Kathleen are just brilliant women. So let's kind of talk about partnerships now. What do we know what do we need to know before we get into a partnership?
Yeah. So a partnership is more of a very formal legal agreement where, and again, this is going to be a little different in every state, but if you're collaborating on something that is not just a project, but maybe could be considered a company or a business, that's going to be a partnership. And we have what's called common law partnerships, which is you don't file anything with the state. You just kind of are a common law partner if you're partnering up on a business. Or like you said, if you form a company with a partner, then that's going to be a more formal partnership. And there are laws that are going to apply to both of those that are going to be a little bit different. So if you're thinking about that, definitely consult with and I hate to keep saying this because there's a lot you can do on your own. But some of these areas, it really does pay to talk with an attorney on the front end, and you'll spend a little bit of money and you will save many, many thousands of dollars later by preventing issues that could come up if you don't think about these things on the front end.
So true. Yes. I'm still learning many, many things, but my partner is my sister-in-law. Her name is Katie. She's awesome. Our venue is on our family ranch. And so that's kind of that brings a whole nother dynamic to our relationship. So we both felt really strongly about just having things spelled out. So it was super clear. So our personal relationship really does not play into any of those legal decisions. So, there's so much to know or to consider. What would you say are maybe some signs of a good partnership, or maybe some signs of a not so good partnership that we should consider before signing on the dotted line?
Oh, this is a good one. So, think about a partnership. You're basically getting business married to somebody. Mm-hmm. You are tying your financial future with them. You are tying your business future with them. So, think about what all the worst case things that could happen, and would you be happy to be with that person in them? What if you have enormous success? Do you think that person is going to handle it well? And are you going to be happy with the way that they want to run things at that point? What if you have disastrous, terrible, nothing goes right and you lose a bunch of money? Would you want to be tied with them? So just, and I have a worksheet that I have my clients go through where they have to answer a bunch of questions. If I'm doing a partnership agreement, or like you said, an operating agreement for an LLC, which is just a fancy word for a partnership agreement, an LLC. And it really forces people to think, okay, if one of you dies, what do you want to happen to the company?
Right.
Somebody gets hit by a bus and they're not dead, but they're in the hospital. All these kinds of, nobody wants to think about these things, but you have to if you're forming a partnership with someone, because it is like getting married. So you just have to think about all those worst case scenarios and make sure that you want to be with that person in the long run. And if you don't, then you need to make sure you build things into your partnership agreement that make it easy for either of you to leave.
Yes.
So there's ways you can structure it if you don't necessarily want to be business married forever. But especially with a small company like we're talking about here, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 people, even if you are able to, if you make it easy to leave, it's not like the other people can just go and sell those shares on the stock exchange. I mean, these are not things that are easy to sell on the open market. So you still have to really think about, long term, how are you going to deal with this person and is it going to work out?
Mm-hmm. Okay. What about when, similarly to the joint venture question, what if okay, I have 2 questions. Here's the first. If our partnership is not going well and we did put the proper paperwork into place, what's the step then? Maybe we didn't totally outline correctly how we wanted to get out. What kind of steps can we take to keep it from imploding but still kind of retain our rights?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first step is always going to be look at whatever your partnership agreement or operating agreement says.
Mm-hmm.
What are your rights? Can you leave? If you leave, do you lose some of your income, or how are you bought out? Just so you know, if you do have to follow the guidelines of your agreement, you know what they are. And you may want to meet with an attorney who can kind of give you some pros and cons and help you run scenarios. But ideally, it sounds like you things are maybe going badly, but you want to make it work. So ideally, maybe you'd want to find someone who, like your tiebreaker friend, who can kind of mediate for you, because you don't want to have to break up and have it be ugly. I mean, if there's a way that you can figure out a win-win for everybody, that would be ideal. So just know that even though you have that partnership agreement or that operating agreement, that doesn't mean that you can't agree to do things differently. You always have the option to come to a different agreement or change things up if that is what makes more sense moving forward. I would just try and think creatively and maybe bring in a third party if that would be helpful to help you get an outsider's perspective or help you brainstorm and think of some ideas. And I'm always trying to figure out a win-win for everybody. Mm-hmm. Like what can one person give up that they don't really mind giving up that would make the other person feel a lot better, or, kind of smooth things over.
Yeah. I also just want to preface you guys, I'm not having issues with my partnership. I'm using the word we because I like to create examples. But Katie, right. If you're listening to this, I love you.
It's hypothetical.
These are all just hypothetical questions. Oh, funny. What about, let's see, I wrote down another question while we were talking. I wanted to make sure to circle back around. Let me try to find it in my notes. But tell me, Autumn, is there anything that we kind of haven't touched on yet that we should touch on regarding partnerships and things of that nature?
No, I will add, I have a download on my website that is perfect for this. So I just want to give that link, and I'm sure you'll put it in the show notes as well.
You bet.
It's at awbfirm.com/partnering-up. And it is the list of questions that I use with my own clients. It's not I can't guarantee it's every question you would ever need to think of, but it's a good starting point. And it has a lot of those key questions, like how are we going to divide profits? What, like we talked about, what if someone dies? Do you want their spouse to inherit the company, or all of those things, just to get the conversation flowing. And that is great for people to sit down with a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, whatever your beverage of choice is, and really hash out with a partner before you get in too deep to make sure that you're on the same page.
Thank you so much. I think those are great. And Autumn was exactly right, you guys. I will link that up in the show notes. So head over there and download that. Even if you're not imminently in a partnership, it would still be great to download that, see kind of the questions that you are going to need to answer at the very least, and then see if do I want to enter into something that might be a little complicated, or should I just keep chilling by myself? These are all good questions to ask.
Yeah. And just, as a kind of general note, I think there are a lot of ways to collaborate short of doing a formal partnership. And so that's why I want people to just know that it is a really serious legal thing if you decide to become formal partners. But there's lots of ways to do things, collaborate together. without becoming business married to someone.
Thank you for saying that. Yes, that is
It doesn't have to be so scary.
Yes, and so and maybe start with that.
Yeah.
Would you agree? Start with a joint
absolutely.
venture or a little collab or project before you get business
Yeah,
married, as you say.
Yeah, you'll get some practice of working with another person, and maybe you love it and maybe you don't. And that's just good information to know about you and your business.
Such good. Thank you for sharing that. Such good advice. Well, as we kind of wind down here, if I missed anything, let me know. I think this was excellent information. Thank you for sharing all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like geeking out. I love chatting about this kind of stuff. So
I have too. I'm like, oh, joint venture. Okay, affiliates. Okay, I'm going to make a note. Well, I'd be interested to know. I mean, especially going from kind of, the traditional litigation that you were doing and now, running a creative online business. You're creative like the rest of us kind of. Tell me, how do you manage your business and projects? What tools are you using? What kind of tech do you like to manage your clients?
yeah, absolutely. So like I said, I'm mostly virtual. So I use a lot of tech and online systems, cloud-based systems. I do have a virtual assistant, and it's funny because she is located near me, but she doesn't come into the office. So she is virtual.
Oh, funny.
So we use Asana for our task management, which I love.
Yes.
And if you are a list kind of person, you will love Asana. If you are more visual, I've heard people love Trello, but I'm like a very right brain type A person. So I love Asana. And we can assign things back and forth, and it's just helped us track things. It's been awesome. So that is one of my favorites. And then we use Slack to communicate, so we stay out of the email inbox, and that is huge because I know you probably, Kenzie, just like me, come into the office every morning, you have a zillion emails, and so to not have internal team emails, we keep that kind of stuff in Slack, and so that's been great. Those are my two biggest ones, and Acuity scheduling is probably my third. And I use Acuity for all of like my client phone calls, prospective client phone calls. If I do a 1 hour legal planning session, and I actually sell that through Acuity so people can pay and book, and it's all right there in one place. So that has been hugely helpful.
Oh, you're kidding. So Acuity has that, the revenue piece. You can accept payments directly on there.
Mm-hmm. They sure do. And
Brilliant.
I just have a link on my website that sends people to that portal if they want to buy that product.
So brilliant. And automation heaven.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Acuity scheduling. I've heard of that. I didn't know they had that payment acceptance portion of it, but I was thinking of going to Acuity to and because we scheduled an interview and I have Calendly, but I always have to have the guests email me their bio and their headshot, and I was wondering if there was a way to like automate that with Acuity. They have to attach that. So
I haven't tried that.
I haven't either. It just seems to be more robust than Calendly. Mm-hmm. So I'll have to check it out now, especially knowing that you use it and like it.
Yeah, it does have forms where like you can ask questions, and I always ask for like phone number and address and things like that before I have a call. So I just have an idea.
Oh, love.
So yeah, definitely check it out.
I will. Thank you. Well, tell me, what is on the horizon for you and your business in 2017?
So you'll laugh. I did not plan this, but my word of the year is collaboration.
Yes.
So this is perfect.
It's all coming together.
Yeah. So I don't have any particular projects in mind. I'm just like kind of keeping myself open to seeing what makes sense and what ideas I have and what ideas other people have. I think oftentimes collaboration is a great way to grow your business, and that is what I am planning to do. And also looking to probably hire an employee or a contractor this year. So that's another way I'll be collaborating as I'm growing and getting busier. So that is what I'm most excited about, is working with more clients. And I'm kind of leveling up the kinds of clients that I'm working with. So they are requiring more of me, which is awesome.
That's fantastic.
I love working with the same people over and over. That's my favorite thing. So that's what I'm most excited about.
That sounds wonderful. I love that word of the year, collaboration. It encompasses a lot, but it's sophisticated and perfect. Love that.
Thank you.
So great. Well, Autumn, I would love for you to tell our listeners where they can find you online.
Yeah, absolutely. So my website, awbfirm.com, has lots of free resources, and you can find all the ways I work with clients. I also have contract templates that I sell there. They're fill in the blank kind of DIY. If you're just getting started out, those can be a great entry point to getting your business legally legit.
Excellent. Autumn, thank you so much for being on She Creates Business. It has truly been a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, it's so super fun. Thank you, Kinsey.
My pleasure. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for listening to She Creates Business. Please take a minute and head to iTunes to leave an honest review so we can help more wedding pros find the show.